This is Robert Margolacci of the Mindshare Learning Report, Canada's Learning and Technology e-magazine, and welcome to This Week in Canadian EdTech. We've got a very special edition this morning on the great snapback and the skills gap and connecting the dots. There's a lot to unpack there, and we've sought the expertise of Dr. Steve Joordens from the University of Toronto. Thank you for joining me this morning, Dr. Joordens.
Great to be with you as always, Robert. Look forward to this.
Well, as the master, having coined the great snapback during the pandemic, I want to highlight Steve's background just a little bit. He is the director. He's the professor of psychology and the director of the Advanced Learning Technologies Lab at the University of Toronto. He's an award-winning professor. He's also a co-creator of the Peer Scholar, and a tech company that's internet-based tool to support the development of critical thought and clear communication in the course context. Fascinating times in education. We've had many conversations over the last couple of years, and you coined the phrase "the great snapback," and let's talk a little bit about that. There are others writing about it. I was just speaking to a CEO of an edtech company, and he's blogging about that notion.
Yeah.
What inspired it, and where are we at with that right now?
Well, I mean, it's kind of interesting because with the full great snapback idea, the idea was there was always this caveat: when we feel safe, we will probably get back out there and live our lives much the way we did pre-pandemic. And that claim was, we are largely social creatures. This is who we are. And all of those rituals we used to have, think of shaking hands or even hugging someone when you meet them. These were decades of habits and deep social rituals that we have that we've been kind of holding back for 2 years, inhibiting. And so the idea of the great snapback is once we feel safe, we will stop inhibiting and we will go back to the way we were, which isn't always the way we want to be. But that would be our natural tendency, would be to fall back on the ways we know.
Absolutely. And there's been tremendous innovation, as we know, in education over the last couple of years. And you being a pioneer of innovation and running the Advanced Tech Research Lab, you're at the forefront of it. And we are seeing some educators wanting to get back to some sense of normalcy, if you will, in the classroom. Everyone's exhausted right now. We have our Schools of the Future challenge going on. I'm just hearing everyone's just done with the year, wants to get through. How do we persevere? How do we mitigate some of those challenges and keep some of the positive things that came out of the pandemic?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what makes this time so sort of, there's a push and pull dynamic. I gave a keynote about this at an IT conference recently where, the part of us wants to say, hey, this is the time to innovate. And I kind of equate that to the $6 million man story. He crashed, he falls apart, but we can rebuild him. We can add the technology to the traditional, if you will, the human, and create a hybrid that's really, really powerful. With education, we have that temptation now too. Our system got kind of blown up by the pandemic, and we now have an opportunity to rebuild it. And yes, we could certainly bring in some digital innovation and try to think of that optimal hybrid. But on the flip side of that is exactly what you talk about. We've been through 2 years of chronic stress, all of us, the teachers, the principals, the administrators, the students, the parents, when we go inside of that. And it's hard to get a group like that to get into that innovative mindset. That's very frontal lobes. And right now we're very limbic system. We're very emotional. We're exhausted. And so I really think we need to take some time to focus on mental health and especially on social connection in the workplace as a way of sort of getting us to a place where we're able to be in that innovative spirit. But I think administrators could run into trouble if they push people too hard right now when they're already exhausted.
Well, some great advice. I was just outdoors chasing our little puppy around the backyard. And, it was so refreshing. I felt so energized. You saw me in here earlier, and I was ready to go. And so talk to me about the importance of physical activity and taking advantage of the outdoors to clear your mind.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we talk about these sometimes as foundational, like good diet is one of them, but certainly exercise, especially aerobic exercise, anything that gets your heart rate up. And for reasons we don't completely understand, that is associated with positive mood. So it just makes you feel better. And of course, the outdoors, just the fresh air, the sunshine, all of that makes us feel like, okay, yes, this is a horrible time in some ways, but in other ways, life is still beautiful. There's a lot of good things to be had. And we do need those sort of reminders. We need to, tell ourselves, we're going to get through this. The worst is behind us, we hope. And it is just a matter of persevering and kind of getting our mojo back now. It's kind of like we're through it, but we just have to recover and then we're ready to run again.
Absolutely. And speaking of social and connections, I was just in Washington, D.C. at an EdTech event. It was wonderful to see my peers and colleagues in the U.S. and some great conversations. Everyone's getting back in the saddle, as you know, and we're thrilled to have you part of C21 Canada's board of advisors now. And I'm off to Winnipeg this afternoon to host our C21 CEO Academy Leadership Summit focused on indigenizing education. What are your thoughts about some of the events that are happening and the importance of something like this?
Yeah, I mean, generally, first of all, social connection. You are the social connection, dude. That's sort of your life. I would point people to an organization called GenWell and the GenWell movement. They are really trying to kind of educate people on the importance of social connection, and they're creating events and doing things. At the corporate level, but also just at the human level, at the public level. And so that's a great organization. If you're feeling at all isolated, there's a group of people just waiting to kind of make you feel less so. But I do feel all of these things are really important. I think we all do want to take this opportunity and make, we know the education system isn't quite where it needs to be to make our students ready for the future that they're going to face. And I think we have some ways now of getting from here to there. It's just getting that energy back so that we can all kind of do that with the right spirit and with the right mind. Our frontal lobes don't work well when we're exhausted. We really need to get that under control, and then we can be creative and the best we are.
And definitely getting a good night's sleep helps, doesn't it?
It absolutely, and we all sort of know that, but it's another one of those things where if you go online and say, what are things I could do to sleep better, it's amazing how many things there are that you can do, and the core beginning one is wake up the same time every day, go to bed the same time every day. If you can just start having that sort of structure to your life, then your body kind of follows that, and it's ready to go to sleep when you're ready to go to sleep. Part of the pandemic craziness is we were all over the place. We had no structure to our lives.
Right.
So a lot of us haven't been sleeping well, and that shows through in then our grumpy behavior and all that kind of stuff. So it's certainly not us at our best when we're tired.
Well, speaking of not sleeping well, and the colors on your wall kind of remind me of the Toronto Maple Leafs. And I had the good fortune of attending one of the winning games in Tampa while I happened to be there on a work vacation trip recently. There's a lot of depression around what's going on, and the Ballard curse seems to be lingering. One of the things that I'm thinking about, well, first of all, how to cope. And then secondly, I'm going to lobby to perhaps look for a name change as Ryerson did. And, the Maple Leafs just don't cut it any longer. Thoughts?
Well, I mean, that was the original curse, as it were, was an ex-Leafs player, and he basically said the Maple Leafs will not win the cup again. So I thought your idea was kind of clever, as it's like the genie in the bottle. You got to learn how to outsmarten the curse. Right. And so, okay, we won't be the Maple Leafs anymore, and then we can win as long as we're not the Maple Leafs. I don't know. I do think it was interesting, and I talked to the media a little bit about how the notion of a curse, as even though we all know it's ridiculous, psychologically it can still have some mojo, and in the sense that when you're a player, you really want to focus on the things you can control, all the practice you put in, all the plans that you have in terms of plays you want to run and all that kind of stuff. That's where you want your head. Anything that pulls your head somewhere else is a negative. It's a distraction. And, when you start doing not so well, or weird things start happening, or refs start being at what you consider unfair, if you have this curse to blame, then suddenly your mind starts going, oh yeah, okay, this thing's in the game as well. And that can be enough to really throw some people off their game. So it is real in a sense.
And we heard Marner was carjacked yesterday, so the Ballard curse is doubly so on him. And fortunately, he's safe. Well, and what about coping? Fans were so invested in the team this year, talking about a Stanley Cup, and here we are out of first round. That's depressing to a lot of people who invested a lot of money in and go into those games.
It's frustrating because we watched all year and we know they're a great team, and so it is frustrating. It's partly the division they're in. If you're in that division, you're going to play other great teams early on, so there's always a chance. But I noticed that yesterday too. I was saying right from when I woke up yesterday, I told my wife, "Wow, this is one of those really blah Mondays." And I was talking to my partner at Cognito, the company behind Pure Scholar, and his first word was blah, and I realized probably all of Toronto was in this malaise yesterday. And I don't know if we all, attribute it to the Leafs or not, but there was this excitement, this anticipation of having some fun for a while that was just sort of taken away. It's just gone. And, we haven't had a lot of excitement. And so I think, I suspect a lot of people felt really down yesterday. And they're just sort of coming through today, hopefully.
Being a half full glass of water kind of person, I really, I toasted after the game. I had a nice scotch, toasted the Leafs, and it was a great year. They provided a lot of entertainment and great promise. And hey, it is what it is. It was like a Stanley Cup final. You're playing the two-time defending champion Stanley Cup winners. So that could have been the Stanley Cup final. So they did well,
and they played great too. I mean, again, the thing I always remind myself and remind other people is Tampa Bay stood in front of over 90% of the shots. They took the players took the shots 90%. To the body.
That's crazy.
And so I mean that shows the determination they had and the sort of team effort that they had to literally sacrifice their bodies for the shot. And that's who we were playing against. So they were a determined lot. I thought the Leafs did really well. But once again, we come away empty-handed. And
with that, when you think about the skills gap, it applies to all sectors, and they've got some work to do off season, and so do we. In preparing for back to school, we're really excited about the opportunities to make an impact. Our Fall EdTech Leadership Summit, and hope you can join us. We definitely would love to have you on the panel. We'll be hosted at McGill University's Faculty of Education on October 20th. And the theme is around the state of EdTech, driving innovation through evidence-based research. What do you think of that notion?
100%. And in fact, I would love to make this connection. We've been talking about the Leafs. We're talking about the future of education. There's a really important connection there, which is if you imagine how, let's say, Mitch Marner got to be Mitch Marner, how much of it was book learning? How much of it was somebody telling him how to play hockey or facts or information about hockey? How much of it was time on the ice, practicing the core skills of the game? Our education system is really good at delivering knowledge. But we also know that for our students to succeed, there are skills of the game, and those skills are critical thought, creative thought, communication, collaboration, metacognitive awareness, sort of knowledge of self, and they are skills. And we need to sort of take a bit of that hockey mentality and say, okay, how do skills develop? Through repeated, structured practice with a lot of support. Wow, that's hard to do. But can we create an ed tech to do that? And in fact, this has been, as you know, this has been my challenge from the outset, is to do exactly that. And I think we do need to look in those directions, developing skills in our students, and we need to look for evidence-based, as thoroughly evidence-based. I like to use the word evidence-drenched now. That's what I want to see in my ed techs. I want to see them really evidence-drenched.
And thank you for that insight and inspiration. And Pure Scholar is at the forefront of that. I mean, you need formative assessment, and what better way than to crowdsource it and work with your peers and support each other in the learning process. Co-learning, co-working is something we embrace every day here.
Yeah, I'm really proud of Pure Scholar, the technology itself, but also I think there's a model there that I would love to see other people emulate, which is, we do a lot of research in the Advanced Learning Technologies Lab, trying to figure out the right way to put together educational processes, how to support them, all that. And then we build that all into the tool. So the tool literally becomes the vehicle for our research, and it's our opportunity for our research, not just to go into some journal somewhere and hope somebody reads it, but rather to go into a classroom, via this tool. And so it's sort of a pipeline of the lab right to the classroom. The latest innovations we find in research get put in the tool immediately and are used, literally the next day or the next week by students. That sort of connection of classrooms to labs, I think that's the future, I hope, of ed tech, of creating, really good ed tech that solves problems that are relevant and that does so in ways where we know the efficacy is there and we know the usability is there.
I love the notion of the design thinking and the incubation, right? You're always kind of in developer mode,
Absolutely.
building the plane as you fly it, if you will. So
It's
again, thank you
formative.
for that opportunity this morning to connect and
Mhm.
unpack, and we'll be back, I'm sure, for another edition sometime soon, and perhaps it'll be a whole branding exercise. I think we'll crowdsource something for the
For the
next
Leafs.
iteration of the Toronto Maple Leafs, and we can take credit for a Stanley Cup one day. How's that sound?
That would be good. I like
I think there's
that.
I think there's a book in the making on the great snapback.
Yeah.
And everyone I wish a book upon, it comes true. So I'm wishing that one for you, Dr. Joordens.
Thank you, Robert. I appreciate that. Have a great day, great week, and have fun in Winnipeg. I'm jealous that I won't be there with you, but I look forward to
Thank
the
you.
next time
Well, I
when I
know
can
you've
be.
got a keynote with the Metro Police, so good luck with that. That was Dr. Steve Joordens of the University of Toronto. My name is Robert Martellacci, the Mindshare Learning Report. Be sure to check out www.mindshare Learning to get your latest issue. And until next time, stay healthy, stay safe, and keep the learning curve steep.